The Florida Panthers go into Raleigh, North Carolina without Evan Rodriguez and Sam Bennett and get blanked once again by the Carolina Hurricanes. But they do not lose any ground for the race for the top spot in the Eastern Conference.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Friday, March 15th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News, and you can follow me on X at MonoMan12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. You can find this show anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. So, Cats fans, when you think about the last 17 road games for the Panthers, 15 of them have been wins, and the only 2 losses have come against this very same team in the Carolina Hurricanes, both coming in shutout fashion for the Panthers going into this one. But thankfully, the season series is over, and thankfully, the Carolina Hurricanes are on the opposite side of the playoff bracket. So, thankfully, the Panthers won't have to deal with them until hopefully later down the line. But it is a Friday, which means it is a Fairbanks Friday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Nich Fairbanks is back, and we're going to break this one down. And Nick, how are you doing on the night? I'm a bit unbothered. How about you?
I'm unbothered because I know in the long scheme of things this doesn't matter, but I'll be honest, I'm a little annoyed with the effort tonight. I expected a little bit more, but let's look at the big picture and what we're looking for at the end of the road. So that's what's keeping me grounded right now.
Yeah, and I think about that too. And it's funny because after the game, they were asked about if the game against Dallas, the third period, really affected where the direction that it went to as far as this game. But the Panthers, I mean, they got off to a pretty good start in the first period. I mean, they were protecting the middle of the ice. The Carolina Hurricanes had a whole bunch of one and dones. I mean, everybody was playing up a spot. I mean, Lundell goes up again on the second line, which if this doesn't tell you if this doesn't give you a good reason why Bill Zito made the right decision in not trading him, I don't know what does. And as well, at Toulouse-Touraine and going back to the third to center. I mean, even though he was -3 on the night, I mean, he had some great opportunities. I mean, on the power play, a sauce pass to Alexander Barkov and a breakaway shorthanded when it was still 0-0. And then, I mean, think about the bad break for the Panthers. They get a check out of the stick of Jordan Staal, and then Seth Jarvis finishes. I mean, it's funny because Kirby Lupul pointed out that with a right-handed shot, that shot doesn't get up because, I mean, the stick angle to circle back and block that shot is a lot different when you have a right-handed shot there. But I mean, really, it all started with that goal towards the end. And I mean, the second period on, it was just all Carolina, and the Panthers, they're having a hard time getting out of their own zone. Mm-hmm. And by the time they would get the puck up the ice and chip it up, I mean, you'd have to go get more different personnel on the ice.
Yeah, and it just seemed like after the first 10 minutes, the boys either lost a bunch of, momentum, knowing that this was going to be a playoff type atmosphere. I mean, it just seemed like after every single little inconvenience or every stoppage that there was always, a little tussle. Tkachuk was getting into it, causing, penalties to be taken. Svechnikov, welcome to the series finally. We'll take penalties all like that all day. But I think after the 10-minute mark of the first period, that's when Carolina decided to switch things up and really take things over. They used their speed to the outside, and on top of that, they took over the neutral zone, which led to Florida not being able to get out of their own zone very effectively. Or if they did, it was not very long before Carolina was back in the zone with a long-distance pass and everything. So couple of things that, Florida needs to clean up. Hopefully we get a look at, another defenseman in the next game. I was not too happy with Josh Mahura's game. I know he's only played 2 games in the last month, but you got to keep your head on a swivel. You got to keep yourself in the game and really yourself ready. I want to see what Bjornfoot could bring, coming from the Vegas system and everything like that. I think he'd bring a different look. Plus, I think in a way he might be a little bit more competent going forward.
Yeah, I would like to see Bjornfoot also get a chance at in the show with the Florida Panthers, but based on Paul Maurice of what he's done, he likes familiarity. If the perfect indication of future behavior is looking at their past behavior, and I don't have a reason to believe that he will just all of a sudden switch it up just like that. I mean, I could be wrong. You never know. But also with just the fact that Panthers go into the second period, I mean, and it just carries over and all based on their play. And I mean, you think about what happened on that second goal where the Panthers they don't get a stick in the blue paint, and then the puck goes on the outside, a slap shot from Orlov takes a funky bounce and then through the legs of Etu and then under the blocker of Bobrovsky, and you're just thinking, man, what do the and after they scored the third one, which was by Evgeny Kuznetsov, still doing the flying motion, even though he's not with the Capitals anymore. But just after that, I mean, they get one off the post, and I mean, if it wasn't for Etu Luostarinen, yes, once again he was -3, but if it wasn't for him being there, they wouldn't have cleared the puck there too. And I mean, the Panthers, they put the stats up on the broadcast where they are in goals against, expected goals against. So I mean, this was a matchup of a Carolina Hurricanes team that they didn't win a single game in the previous series last season, and they still want to show their presence and saying, hey, we're still a contender. Yeah, this is a regular season game, but also if you're on the other side of things, if you're losing the season series against the team you already lost, how are you feeling going once the season series is finished? This is more about the Carolina Hurricanes getting their confidence up because the Florida Panthers, they're going to flush this down the toilet and move on. Even Kevin Stenlund after the game spoke about it. New game on Saturday. It's a new day.
Yeah, and without inciting any kind of fandom warfare here, let them win the regular season. That's basically all they're good at, anyways. I mean, they've been swept out of the last 4 times that they've gone to the Eastern Conference Final. 3,
but yeah, close enough.
3? Okay, you know what? Yeah. We're going to make it number 4, hopefully, here coming this year. But it just, to me, you got to win when it matters. And, I understand that I'm trying to make a statement, but this does nothing to Florida. I'm sorry. They were down 3 key players in their lineup. Last game, they lost to Chuck and Forsling, so they weren't, at 100%, but still, put up a good game until the final 18 seconds. Does Carolina have enough firepower now to actually get them over the hump with now Kuznetsov and Gensel? I guess time's going to tell. They'll have to gel and everything. We'll have to see if Kuznetsov is still the player that he thinks he is, and we'll have to see if Gensel is a player that can play without Sidney Crosby. So, as Stenlund said, next game Saturday. Can't do anything about this one. But one other thing I will add, Bob probably should have only had the Kuznetsov shot. The other 2, I don't think he really had a chance on.
Yeah, and the Kuznetsov shot just coming off a bad breakout for the Panthers too, and it's just like when you tend to overthink whenever you're just so pinned in your own end, and really that's really and the Panthers, God, third period only 3 shots on goal at 5-on-5, and that was their only 3 shot attempts at 5-on-5. 3 shot attempts, 3 shots on goal only. And Carolina, they shut it down when they needed to. Credit to them. They did the job tonight, and they need when they needed to. And Panthers power play just very slow on their passing too, and just a little bit of hesitation there. as far as that. And Carolina made them overthink. Thankfully for the Panthers, I mean, both sides of things in a season series, 0 power play goals between the two teams. So that's a stat that's worth bringing up. Even though the Panthers they thrive on goaltending and timely power play goals, but in this one, if you're thinking a 7-game series with the type of firepower, I'm still confident in a long series versus going gaps between facing Carolina. It's a different animal. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2. We're going to discuss more about when we thought this game was won or lost, and the 3 stars of the game. We're going to discuss that and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast.
Come in.
Today's episode is brought to you by Robinhood. And did you know that even if you have a 401k, you can still have an IRA? Robinhood has the only IRA that gives you a 3% boost on every dollar you contribute when you subscribe to Robinhood Gold. But get this, now through April 30th, Robinhood is even boosting every single dollar you transfer in from the retirement accounts with a 3% match. That's right, no cap on the 3% match. Robinhood Gold gets you the most for your retirement thanks to their IRA with a 3% match. This offer is good through April 30th. Get started with Robinhood.com/boost. Subscriptions apply. And now for some legal info. Claim as of Q1 2024, validated by Radius Global Market Research. Investing involves risk, including loss. Limitations apply to IRA and 401ks. 3% match requires Robinhood Gold for 1 year from the date of the first 3% match. Must keep Robinhood IRA for 5 years. The 3% matching on transfers is subject to specific terms and conditions. Robinhood IRA available to U.S. customers in good standing. Robinhood Financial LLC. Member SIPC is a registered broker dealer. As you know, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, Locked On Sports Today. Baseball fans, mark your calendars for March 20th at 7 p.m. for the best MLB season preview coming up exclusively on Locked On Sports Today. On March 20th at 7 p.m., be the first to get the first local insight from the MLB local experts from the Locked On Podcast Network. Find it on March 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube or on the free Amazon Fire TV app. Back on this Friday, March 15th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Friday where the Florida Panthers got shut out. Yeah, apparently they got shut out, but it's the Hurricanes. So in my opinion, and maybe in Nick's opinion, they didn't get shut out neither. But
we're gonna have to check with Hot Rod over there to see if that really happened.
Yes, let's go ask him. But so 3 stars of the game for this game between the Florida Panthers and the Carolina Hurricanes. Yeah, number 1, because he didn't give up a goal. I'm going to give it to Freddie Anderson. Not only Freddie Anderson because of the game, but also his story of this season, going through everything health-wise, and great to see him back on the ice. So I'm going to give him the first start of the game for the Carolina Hurricanes. Number 2 is Evgeny Kuznetsov, number 2 as far as that, a point and a goal and an assist on the night. And third one, it's funny because they actually changed Marty Necas's goal to Jake Gensel. So Jake Gensel got his first goal as a Carolina Hurricane. So, hey, 2-time 40 goal scorer. Like you said, let's see how he performs in the long run away from Sidney Crosby. But still, I'm going to give it to Marty Necas for creating that shot in the first place there. But those are my 3 stars of the game. Who are your 3 stars of the game for this one?
I will give it to Freddie Anderson. Welcome back to the show. Hope you're feeling a lot better. It's definitely scary what he had to deal with and everything. And looks like he was picking up where he left off and everything. So, happy to see that he is still putting in, good work and he's getting rewarded for it. Second one, I will give it to Jake Gensel. That was one player I did hone in on watching the game. He was very disruptive and very good in the neutral zone and causing a lot of problems for the Panthers. And he gets rewarded with a goal after the fact. So I'll give him the second star. And then the third one, I'll give it to actually Dmitry Orlov. I thought he was a pest in the back as well. He was not letting any Panther, win any battles. He was absorbing a lot of hits, taking, people out, boxing them out, and ended up scoring, that big goal, that kind of really broke the game open for Carolina. So, I have to give it to him. Unfortunately, wish could put a Florida Panther on there, but I don't think anybody played well enough tonight to, get a start tonight.
I mean, I would say Sergei Bobrovsky. I obviously, you have to. You don't see many of the bad goals given up by him for him. So I'm gonna give him as an honorable mention. Also, just once again, Eetu Luostarinen playing in his natural position, even though it says -3 on the plus minus there. But for the moment that we thought this game was won or lost in this one I believe for me it was at the start of the second period. The Carolina Hurricanes, they're out shooting the Panthers 7-0. And then when the Florida Panthers finally got their first shot on net, it was shortly after the Carolina Hurricanes got it up to 2-0. And then but it was an outside shot. It was from the perimeter, and Freddie Anderson had a lot of time. And that's literally when I just wrote it down in my notes. I was like, okay, circle this moment as when you thought the game was lost in this one, and that you were very confident as far as that. So that is my moment when I thought this game was won or lost. When was your moment?
It had to be that, I don't want to say it's a turnover, but that failed clearance attempt that allowed Kuznetsov to score his first goal as a Cane. And seeing him celebrate the way he did, I think that was it for me. I kind of felt like, at 2-0, like maybe we can come back like we did against Dallas. And I think after Kuznetsov just had that wide open shot and he beat Bob cleanly, I just didn't think they had it tonight. It didn't matter what kind of pushback they had. Carolina had the neutral zone, and they had every means of shutting them down. First line wasn't really doing anything too much after the first period. Second line was ineffective. Third line, besides Luostarinen, was not doing anything. And then the fourth line, So for me, it was the Kuznetsov goal.
Also, I read the tweet incorrectly from team reporter of the Carolina Hurricanes, Walt Ruff. It's still Nich's goal, excuse me, but the secondary assist was given to Jake Gensel. My apologies for misreading that. But yeah, for that third one, a rare mistake by Gustav Forsling. But but think about where the puck was down in the near side corner there for the Panthers, and when you're pinned, you're just trying to kind of flip a prayer. You're kind of trying to say a prayer whenever you're trying to flip it out, and just hopefully that you're playing the neutral zone by getting the sticks active can create something off a rush. Because I mean, credit to the Panthers, the rush attempts that they learned some of their lessons from Dallas, at least hopefully for them. And also we also spoke about some stretches lately that they had that week where they looked not so great against Ottawa and Montreal, but looked great against Carolina Hurricanes in the same week. And maybe this is kind of like not necessarily the same thing, because they did not look great in a loss, but they did not look great in a win just the other day too. So it's just really about setting that standard once again and saying, hey, this is one that, you could flip the page. And I mean, for Paul Maurice, even after, he wasn't sounding so worried neither. And it's the opposite end of the whole game in Tampa, it feels, where they're not gonna put too much stock into what as far as breaking down things, but also when it comes to the other end, it's still keeping that even keel for the season. Because I mean, think about where their record is, and think about once again, big picture for the Cats. I mean, you're still 15-0 in 17 road games, and since the 23rd of December, they have 6 regulation losses, and none of them have been in back-to-back games. 0. Like, it's
model of consistency. Finally,
yeah, basically, it's you can go to sleep. It's like you can go to sleep after a loss, knowing that they're going to come prepared. The fact that the coach doesn't have to barge into the locker room and say, "You guys are playing like bleepy blanky blank," kind of like
I know
last
exactly
season.
what that is. Yeah.
So you don't have that situation, and it's the fact that the guys in the locker room can police themselves. That's the great thing about it.
Yeah, and the big thing about this again is it's whatever right now. I don't want the boys to coast, because that's when you start developing bad habits, and those bad habits can then really affect you when you go into the playoffs playing a team that is either barely just going to make it, or that's going to give you a hard time. I mean, look at what Florida did to Boston and everybody else last postseason. They got to get themselves right, and I think they will. But just don't let things like tonight affect you. I think I would like to equate tonight's game as to a mosquito kind of going in and out of your ear, and then eventually catching it and it goes away. Exactly. You did a lot better than I did. So
subscribe to the YouTube channel to see my impersonation of it.
Exactly. But eventually it goes away and it doesn't affect you in the long run. It's annoying, but whatever. We can breathe. We can move on to the game on Saturday, and hopefully we have a better matchup than last time, even though it was enjoyable on Florida's side.
Yep. And that is a perfect opportunity to transition to segment number 3. We're going to discuss more about what happened in the night for the Panthers. Some magic numbers have been updated as far as clinching scenarios. And let's ask this question. Is the President's Trophy really a curse? We're going to discuss that and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Ibotta. And grocery bills are expensive these days, but now they don't have to be. Start getting cash back on your grocery shopping with the free Ibotta app and get cash back every time you shop. Do you love making money, but also love spending money? Don't we all? Now you can make money while you spend it every time you shop with Ibotta. Ibotta is the free app that gives you the most cash back every time you shop hundreds of items, from grocery to beauty supplies to toys. Now you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. Other apps give you points that don't amount to much. With Ibotta, just add offers in the app, upload your receipt, and get real cash so you can cash out your bank account, PayPal, or gift cards. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using code LOCKEDONNHL when you register. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app and start earning cash back and use code LOCKEDONNHL. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use promo code Locked On NHL. Segment number 3 here on this Friday, March 15th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Friday. And the Florida Panthers coming off a 4-0 loss to the Carolina Hurricanes from PNC Arena tonight. And also, I want to say a public congratulations to the University of Miami and the University of Florida hockey programs, their club programs, for winning their respective club championships. And Josh Ho-Sang signing an ECHL contract with the Florida Everblades. Sam Bennett's former teammate from the Toronto Marlboros in U16, who they happen to be teammates with Connor McDavid. Ho-Sang was the leading point getter, going to be helping the Florida Everblades three-peat, hopefully. But Nick, as far as the results on the night, so I'm sure you know because of the household you're in. Detroit lost again, 7 in a row. They're fighting in practice between Lucas Raymond and Ben Sherratt. Lucas Raymond actually scored the only goal for the Red Wings, but for those who didn't know. But now the magic number for the Florida Panthers is 10 to clinch a playoff spot. So they gain some ground in that department. But as far as other results, the New York Islanders get blanked. The Boston Bruins win in overtime, so they benefit again. But the Florida Panthers have a game in hand and a point ahead. And the New York Rangers lost in regulation on the road in Tampa. So they didn't lose anything as far as the race for the top spot. So thankfully there. But also this goes back. I want to have this conversation with you because the guys over at Panther Prairie spoke about the President's Trophy and if it is a curse and if it's not, or if it isn't one. And they said on the show that more often than not, the top seed in the NHL since 1967 has gone on to win the Stanley Cup. But the President's Trophy hasn't been was first distributed in 1985, 5 years after the merger of the WHA and the NHL. But since 67, since the expansion, 19 teams that have gotten the top spot have won the Stanley Cup. And I've already done the calculations for everyone. 34% of those teams since the late 60s. So a little bit different when you add the trophy aspect starting from 85. So how are you looking at this now that you see it that top spot more often gets a championship? But I also said this too. There's going to be 3 reasons why the Florida Panthers don't win the Stanley Cup. It is number 1, they don't play well. Number 2, injuries. And number 3, this one's more jokingly, not because of winning a regular season title.
So I'm glad you asked me this because I had this line lined up for it. I'm not religious, but I'm superstitious.
Fair
when
enough.
it comes to things like this in sports, it's all about habits and it's all about keeping yourself in the zone and doing things that keep you within that zone. And I think with what Florida's doing right now, they're trying to do that. They're trying to stay within themselves. They're trying to be the best that they can be. However, that can be overwhelming at times because it paints a target on your back. Everybody's going to come after you. Nobody wants to give you, an inch. They want to come after you and make sure that, they can say that they beat the best. Florida did it to Boston, embarrassed them, unfortunately, in Boston's case. And now Florida is on the other end of it, not having, the best overall regular season ever, but still coming in and being the number 1 team. I don't like having that target on my back. I like to be
That's
anonymous
fair.
behind the scenes and being able to go win level and being able to take it from there. I don't like giving other teams an advantage, or at least, chalkboard material, so to say.
Yeah, I can imagine just the bulletin board material that could come with it because, think about every single game that the Panthers are involved in. Everyone just wants to get a little bit of a piece of them too. If just going back to this one, just the trip that Nich has had on Tkachuk near the bench, and then Tkachuk goes to the box for that. It's not really about arguing the call. That's not the point, but it's just about these. It's not. Even Jovo after the game spoke. It's not really about the open ice hits, but just little scuffles and little pushes and just a little bit of those love taps that happen too. And it's just something so simple like that teams are going to try to do to try to get under the skin of them and see if the Panthers are going to react that way too. And could that affect their play as far as if they lose a puck battle along the boards too? And listen, thankfully they have guys who can bait guys into penalties. Even though that Aho shot on net after a whistle, in my opinion, that was a little too fast for him to react. But hey, the Panthers still drew a penalty out of that too. When you think about it, so those are the little advantages of a team that is just so battle tested. They go into the postseason. They have It's not necessarily, there's a difference between conceited and being confident. I don't think the Panthers are conceited
No, definitely not.
in their approach, because I believe if they were a team that was conceited, then they would then anything that goes wrong in an 82 game season, it would affect them for a while. I mean, yeah, we talk about they haven't had 2 regulation losses in a row since December 23rd, but look at what happened in mid-January, where they had those 4 losses, but you got some points out of that too. You're still battling it out through all of that and getting games and even getting some of that loser points, something that we were complaining about early in the season. So it's like, oh, the Panthers don't get into overtime enough, they're losing early. But look what's happened since.
Yeah, and it's a great point you made up that you brought up. Florida's definitely not conceited at all. They are probably one of the most hardworking teams, well-conditioned teams that, they can just outskate or out-hit or outplay anybody right now. And I don't think that they take it to their heads at all. They play the game that they know that they can play, and that allows them to win the games or gives them a chance to win the games. But at no point do they think that they're better than anybody else. They know that every game is going to be a grind and that they have to play a certain way in order to win. Now, it just depends on their opposing team, how they would like to play and how they want to treat it. Florida can play run and gun. They could play, neutral zone trap. They can play a heavy game if they want. It just comes down to what the team's overall goal is and if they're willing to sacrifice to not only stay within that, but also to win those games. The other part of it is if you look at other President's Trophy winning teams, they wanted the cup for sure, but there was a lot of things that went on in those seasons that showed that they were not the cup favorites that everybody thought they were. And they've been pointed out whenever they did play teams that played them hard or played them a certain way that, oh, this might be concerning because they're having trouble with this. And if they see this team again in the playoffs, this might happen. And, I can't say that there's any team out there right now that really worries me too much, but, you might catch Florida on a bad night or a bad couple of nights, and that could really set them back in a series. So let's just be humble.
Boston for sure. Even with their lack of center depth, Boston, they have 2 great goaltenders and a great blue line. Carolina, even though the Florida Panthers did win all 4 games last season, that there's warning signs, but nothing to look forward to yet. And you got to get out of that the first 2 rounds first. And obviously the Rangers, who if you look up, if you guys haven't looked up that goal by Artemi Panarin yet, please do. It's a brilliant pass by Vincent Trocheck, and just an amazing toe drag that he got to get it to the bread man. And Igor Shesterkin, he's looking good lately too. So those are the 3 teams that I think scare me the most as far as the Florida Panthers. Also, before we get out of here, the other teams that have won the Stanley Cup, the next closest seed is number 2, is the number 2 seed, but they have won the cup 8 times since '67, the second best record. And then, weirdly enough, the third has only won 3 times, while the fourth has won 7. So credit to Jacob Langsam from Panther Prairie for helping me out researching that too, and wanted to message him right away the moment that episode was posted and say, hey, could you help me out? So can't take credit for that. Definitely got to give credit where credit is due, and all. But Nick, I want to thank you so much for joining me once again on this Fairbanks Friday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Another successful podcast despite a loss for the Florida Panthers. Tell everybody where they can follow you online, my friend.
You guys can follow me on X at Prudential0, and I'm going to plug Instagram at BURE1096 or Bure1096. So, Armando, thank you again for having me on, and I look forward to coming back next week.
And next week will be a game for the Florida Panthers where they'll have some time off before that. So, get get some rest, my friend, in between Saturday and Thursdays. So I'll see you then.
I will try.
My friend.
Thank you.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Steer Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Nich Fairbanks. And you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.